I love unsolved mysteries. Although trying to solve the mystery is intellectually exciting, one often encounters endless frustrations when looking at multiple candidates to a crime. There are a number of high-profile mysteries that have not been definitively solved to the point where experts in law enforcement agree that one particular suspect was the actual perpetrator of the crime. Looking at the Zodiac Killer in California or Jack the Ripper in England, there are often a number of very credible suspects that could have been the actual perpetrator. The same goes for the man that is now historically known as D.B. Cooper. If you're watching this, you probably already know who D.B. Cooper, or Dan Cooper as he gave his name, which no doubt is an alias, was the skyjacker who hijacked Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 on the day before Thanksgiving in 1971. He was given 4 parachutes and $200,000 in $20 bills, all of which had their serial numbers recorded. He then jumped out of the back of a plane into the night somewhere over southern Washington. Initially, the FBI searched the area around Ariel, Washington, but a lot of experts think that Cooper waited till he got to the Columbia River, where he would have been able to see the lights of Vancouver, Washington on the north shore of the river, and Portland, Oregon on the southern shore. 9 years after the hijacking, 2 complete and 1 partial bundles of part of the ransom was found buried in the sand on the north shore of the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington. The FBI immediately assumed that the hijacker was somebody who was a skydiver or a paratrooper, most likely somebody who had served in Vietnam and had experience jumping out of planes using parachutes. Certain clues, which I won't go into in this video, call into question exactly what level of experience Cooper may have had with parachuting, but certainly at the time there were many former Vietnam veterans in society who had some degree of parachute experience. In episode 112 of my show, I discuss whom I think was the perpetrator, who I argued was Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. I think on the surface he looks like a good candidate, and I encourage you to go back and watch that episode. But since then, I've gotten comments on that video where people argue against him and for other people as better candidates. Let's look at 2 of those other candidates, and most of this information is taken directly from Wikipedia with some minor edits. I haven't had time to look at all the original source material that is referenced, but I'll do that at some point. Of course, after you listen to this podcast, I would hope that you would leave some type of comment in the comment section. Either simply leave the name of who you think Cooper was, or leave further information on other possible candidates or other sources of information that you think would be good for me to look at. Here's the first candidate, William Gossett. William Pratt Gossett, 1930 to 2003, was a Marine Corps, Army, and Army Air Forces veteran who had military service in Korea and Vietnam. His military experience included jump training and wilderness survival. Gossett was known to be obsessed with the Cooper hijacking. According to Galen Cook, a lawyer who has collected information related to Gossett for years, he once showed his sons a key to a Vancouver, British Columbia safe deposit box, which he claimed contained the long-missing ransom money. The FBI has no direct evidence implicating Gossett, cannot even reliably place him in the Pacific Northwest at the time of the hijacking. Quote, "There is not one link to the D.B. Cooper case," unquote, said Special Agent Carr of the FBI, quote, "other than the statements Gossett made to someone," unquote. Now that's the end of the short Wikipedia article on Gossett. I have links in the show notes to another article that was published by a relative of Gossett's. Please take a look at that article. It is very interesting, and there's some pictures there which certainly show some similarities between Gossett in the early 1970s with the composite drawing of the hijacker. Even if Gossett had nothing to do with the skyjacking, he does seem to be a very interesting person, evidently joining the FBI, then later becoming a priest in the Old Catholic Church, which is a denomination that is split from the more well-known mainline Roman Catholic Church. He then ended up in Depot Bay, Oregon. The next candidate for today's video is Ted Braden. Theodore Braden Jr., 1928 to 2007, was a Special Forces commando during the Vietnam War, a master skydiver, and a convicted felon. He was believed by many within the Special Forces community, both at the time of the hijacking and in subsequent years, to have been Cooper. Born in Ohio, Braden first joined the military at the age of 16 in 1944. serving with the 101st Airborne during World War II. He eventually became one of the military's leading parachutists, often representing the Army in international skydiving tournaments, and his military records list him as having made 911 jumps. During the 1960s, Braden was a team leader within a classified commando unit of Green Berets, which conducted unconventional warfare operations during the Vietnam War. He also served as a military skydiving instructor, teaching halo jumping techniques to members of Project Delta. Braden spent 23 months in Vietnam conducting classified operations within both North and South Vietnam, as well as Laos and Cambodia. In December 1966, Braden deserted his unit in Vietnam and made his way to the Congo to serve as a mercenary, but would only serve there a short time before being arrested by CIA agents and taken back to the States for a courts-martial. Despite having committed a capital offense by deserting in wartime, Braden was given an honorable discharge and barred from reenlisting in the military in exchange for his continued secrecy about the classified programs that he had been involved with. Braden was profiled in the October 1967 issue of Ramparts magazine, wherein he was described by fellow Special Forces veteran and journalist Don Duncan as being someone with a secret death wish who continually places himself in unnecessarily dangerous but always seems to get away with it, specifically referring to Braden's disregard for military skydiving safety regulations. Duncan also claimed that during Braden's time in Vietnam, he was continuously involved in shady deals to make money. Following his military discharge in 1967, the details of Braden's life are largely unknown, but at the time of the hijacking, he was a truck driver for Consolidated Freightways, which was headquartered in Vancouver, Washington, just across the Columbia River from Portland, Oregon, and not far from the suspected drop zone of Ariel, Washington. It's also known that at some point in the early 1970s, he was investigated by the FBI for stealing $250,000 during a trucking scam he had allegedly devised, but he would never be formally charged for this supposed crime. In 1980, Braden was indicted by a federal grand jury for driving an 18-wheeler full of stolen goods from Arizona to Massachusetts, but it is unknown whether there was a conviction in that case. 2 years later, Braden would be arrested in Pennsylvania for driving a stolen vehicle with fictitious plates and for having no driver's license. Braden eventually ended up being sent to federal prison at some point during the late 1980s, serving time in Pennsylvania, but the precise crime is unknown. Despite his ability as a soldier, he was not well liked personally and was described by family members as the perfect combination of high intelligence and criminality. From his time working covert operations in Vietnam, he likely would have possessed the then classified knowledge about the ability and proper specifications for jumping from a 727, perhaps having done it himself on classified missions. Physically, Braden's military records list him at 5 feet 8 inches, which is shorter than the height description of at least 5 feet 10 inches given by the 2 flight attendants. But his military measurements would have been taken in his stocking feet and may have appeared somewhat taller in shoes. However, he possessed a dark complexion from years of outdoor military service, had short dark hair, a medium athletic build, and was 43 years of age at the time of the hijacking, which are features all in line with the descriptions of Cooper. So that's it. I want to keep today's video as short as possible. So that's all I'm going to say on these two intriguing candidates for now. What do you think? I would love it if you leave a comment in the comment section, either just the name of who you think the best candidate is, or as much information as you'd like to type. And of course, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel, looked at my other videos, and click the like button on those, and also leave comments on them if you're so moved. All those things really help me out in building a following here on YouTube, so that I can devote more resources to making better videos. Again, thank you so much.